polls showing the race is tighter than ever and her momentum seeming to slow, Kamala Harris is on a media blitz, responding to months of criticism for not doing interviews by sitting down with everyone from 60 Minutes to Howard Stern.
Would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like?
Kamala Harris on a media offensive, taking her campaign to a wide range of platforms.
This is an election that is about strength versus weakness.
Reaching out to diverse groups of voters, like Latinos in a Univision town hall.
I will bring back that border security bill, and I will sign it into law.
And female voters who listen to one of the top podcasts for women.
This is not the 1950s anymore. Families come in all kinds of shapes and forms.
But when facing tough questions, Harris lacked detailed answers.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem.
And when the questions got easier, one answer got her in trouble.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
The Trump team pounced, posting it on social media and playing it at rallies.
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
The Harris blitz coming just as new polls show her narrowly trailing in 2 of the 3 blue wall states she almost certainly needs to win. Here with me today, podcaster, journalist, and author Kara Swisher, conservative pollster and New York Times opinion writer Kristen Soltis Anderson, New York Times journalist and the Interview podcast host Lulu Garcia Navarro, and editor-in-chief of The Dispatch and columnist at the LA Times, Jonah Goldberg. Welcome back, everyone. Kristen, when you look at those polls, and different ones have different numbers, but in that poll, narrowly trailing in Michigan and Wisconsin, is the Harris campaign stalling?
I think it is stalling. I think that a lot of the initial enthusiasm that came out of the Democratic convention and her nomination and the unification of the party behind her has begun to wear off, and we've moved into the part of the campaign where it's no longer about exciting your side, unifying your party. Folks who are really engaged in politics have already decided. So I think on paper, her media blitz this week, deciding to go out and reach all of these voters who are maybe less connected to politics, seems smart on paper, but I think the execution really left something lacking. I'm not sure that she out in these engagements did what she would have needed to do to really excite and enthuse people who may not have already liked her.
All right, we're going to get to the media blitz in a moment, but let's talk about the state of the campaign, because the Harris campaign is clearly worried about her standing with young black men, and they're sending Barack Obama out these final 3+ weeks to try to reach them. Here he is in Pittsburgh.
You're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I'm speaking to men directly now. Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
Sorry, bro. Lulu, Harris is leading among black men and Latino men, but not nearly by the same margins that Biden enjoyed in 2020.
That is Dad Obama right there. It's him sort of adopting that tone of scolding and saying, hey, men, why aren't you actually backing women? I don't know that that was the best tactic, I'll be honest with you. It's not really persuading people. At the end of the day, she has a problem with men. There is a huge gender gap, though, in this election. This is, as it's been dubbed, the gender election. And I think if I were Kamala Harris, I'd rather have women than men. The kinds of men that Donald Trump has are irregular voters, they're low propensity voters. The kinds of people that Kamala Harris has are enthusiastic voters, black women, suburban women. These are the older women. These are the people that turn out. And so in this kind of divided election among gender lines, I think you'd rather have one than the other.
But you can't.
Wait, well, let me just ask Kristen, do you agree with that, or do you?
I think that Donald Trump has a lot of men who are pretty regular voters, too. I mean, he does very well among, say, senior citizen men who are a known group that turns out to vote in high numbers. But it is also true that Donald Trump is not doing as well among, say, senior citizen women. So I do think that Donald Trump has brought a lot of people into the process who in past elections might not have voted, and they certainly don't turn out in midterms. They only turn out for him. I think the gender gap is going to be high. And what's ironic is the gender gap will be high at the same time that I think the racial and age gaps in this election might actually be smaller.
Karen?
Interesting. Well, I think she's got to keep doing it. I think not enough in repetition, because everyone does know Donald Trump, and he fills up every space that he can, whether it's with toxic stuff or loud or meandering. It doesn't really matter. He just fills up all the space. And so she has to do more and more. I think that she's going on Charlemagne the God is critically important. That's a great booking for her. And he has a base of real fans. I think she should go on Joe Rogan. I think she should go on Fox News. I think she should go to every local station and just make herself so inevitable where she makes mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes, but the fewer she does, the more mistakes seem glaring.
She needs
Jonah,
to make news.
Jonah, I want to bring you in and talk about whether this media blitz this past week has helped or hurt. For instance, Harris went on 60 Minutes. Trump ducked it. But when she was asked tough questions by Bill Whitaker, the sense I got, and we played a clip here, was that Harris basically gave boilerplate.
Yeah, that's the mystery to me here. We've all talked about plenty of times how smartly, if cynically, she's shed a lot of her 2020 positions to reach to the center. She picked Tim Walz as maybe a mistaken play to reach to the center. She's abandoned some of the positions in all sorts of ways. If you have that level of mercenary commitment to winning the presidency, memorize some answers. Like the idea that she doesn't have a boilerplate, thoughtful answer about what she would do differently than Joe Biden, and I can think of a dozen different ways she could answer it, which wouldn't be insulting to Joe Biden, is just weird to me. To look like she hasn't really given it any thought or nothing comes to mind.
I bet she didn't expect it there. That's why.
But she should expect it. If she's
Correct.
going on a
That's
media
correct.
blitz,
But
she
I
should just
think-
have it like memorized. She was so prepared for that debate.
Yeah.
She should be equally prepared for a bunch of interviews. And there are 20 likely questions that she's going to get asked. She may only get 10 in one interview versus another, but she knows where they are, and she's a good enough politician to bend the conversation.
I want to dig down on this exchange because it really was stunning, and the Trump campaign has turned it into an ad.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder.
Kristen, I agree with Jonah. I am shocked she didn't have a better answer to whatever the venue was a pretty predictable question. Should Harris distance herself from Joe Biden?
I think she needs to be the candidate who is going to be change and something fresh and new, and she has signaled that she wants to be that person.